In this project, we will extract the data from the API using Azure Data Factory. That is kind of like the data pipeline tool available on Azure. We will build a flow like this and load our data onto the Azure Data Lake storage. So first, we will load the raw data. Then using Azure Databricks, we will write our Spark code and transform our data and load our data back to our transformed data lake storage. Once that is done, we will use Synapse Analytics to run the SQL queries on top of the transformed data so that we can find the insights and get the visualization on top of it. Hey guys, welcome back to another project video where we will execute the entire data engineering project from start to end, from extracting data, doing the transformation, and then loading the data and doing analysis on top of it. In this video, we will be using Azure Cloud. So we have already done few projects on AWS, on GCP. So I just wanted to introduce the new cloud and show you the way we can perform data engineering on Azure Cloud. So we will be learning about many different services. We will understand the basics about Azure Cloud. We will understand about Databricks, Data Factory, how to write Spark code, Synapse Analytics, how to build a data lake, and many more things. So I hope you have fun executing this project. And before you execute this project and start doing it, I will highly suggest you to like this video, comment your thoughts below this video, so this will help this channel to grow and reach more and more people. And if you like this type of content, I keep doing this on my channel, so you can hit that subscribe button. A lot of people watch my videos but they do not subscribe it, so I will appreciate that if you hit that subscribe button. And let's get started with the video. So in this project, we will take the Olympic data that is available on Kaggle and we will build end-to-end Azure data engineering project. So we will use the major services available on Azure Cloud and try to build a simple data pipeline. We will copy the data, do some basic transformation, and then load the data onto some target location. So this is the overall project. We will understand about each and everything, so you don't have to worry about anything right now. So this is the architecture diagram. As you can see, we have a data source, then we have some ingestion mechanism. We are storing that data onto some location, then we are using some transformation code using Apache Spark. Then again, we are storing this transformation block using the analytics function, and then we have the dashboard at the end. So let's try understanding these entire architecture diagram one by one so that we can get understanding about each and every individual service. So first, we will understand this architecture diagram and then we will deep dive into individual services and what they mean on Azure Cloud. Okay, so first is we have the data source. Now, to understand this architecture diagram, you need to know the basics about ETL, extract, transform, load. So in extract, transform, load, we basically extract data from multiple sources. Then we apply some transformation logic. The transformation logic can be anything such as cleaning the data, removing duplicate values, null values, or applying any business logic. And at the end, we load that data onto some target location. So this particular architecture diagram is built on top of that using Azure Cloud Services. Okay, so first of all, we have a data source, that the data that we will use from the Kaggle, and we will understand about the data and what types of file we have, the columns we have as we go forward in this video. Okay, then we will use a service available on Azure Cloud called as a Data Factory. Now, Data Factory is an integration service. You can build a data pipeline. You can, connect to multiple sources. If you want to do some basic transformation, you can also do that. We have a lot of different functionalities available, and this is the service available on Azure that you can use to build a simple data pipeline, or you can also do some complex work if you want to do that. So this is about the data factory. So we will use Azure Data Factory to extract data from our data source, and then we will load that data onto our data lake storage. Now, data lake storage is basically an object storage where you can store your file. So on Azure Cloud, we have something called as a storage account. Okay, storage account. Inside the storage account, you can create the containers where you can store the blob files, or you can also create the tables, and there are multiple things available. So you can read the documentation about it, but the overall goal of the data lake is to store the structured and unstructured data onto the storage. So what we will do, we will extract the raw data and we will store the raw data as it is on our storage location. After that, we will want to do some transformation code on top of this. So what we will do, we will get this raw data, we will write our code in Apache Spark on this Databricks environment and do some basic transformation, and again load our data onto the transformed data. So after cleaning the data and doing some basic transformation, we will again load the data onto the data lake storage over here. So we will have the raw data stored and we will have the transformed data stored. Both of these data will get stored onto our data lake storage. Once you have that, then we can use this analytics service called as Azure Synapse Analytics. Okay, So in this, you can use multiple things. You can use notebook, you can use SQL functions to, run the analytics query on top of it. So if you want to understand who won the highest gold medal by the country, or which player won the highest gold medal, you can do that using the SQL queries also. And at the end, we can build a dashboard using multiple tools such as Power BI, Local Studio, and Tableau. So here's the overall understanding about the architecture. You have the data source available. We will use some integration service provided by Azure to build a simple pipeline. We will load that data onto the storage location. Then we write some transformation block. Then again, we store the transform data, and then using Azure Synapse Analytics, we can do some analytics on top of it, and then we can build a dashboard. So I hope you understood about this, and now we will try to understand each of these service in little bit detail and what they do, so that you guys can have the better understanding. Okay. So before we go forward, I just want to give you the basic prerequisite required for this course. One is you need the stable internet connections and the laptop. So you don't need a very high-end laptop, because everything we will do will be on the cloud platform. So all you need is a stable internet connection and the browser where you can access the Azure Cloud Portal. Okay, this is the first thing. Second, you should know the basics of Python and the SQL, because I will not spend my time teaching you about all of these things. So it is expected that you know the basics about it, and if you don't know about it, then you can go check the courses below. I have the courses available on Python for data engineering and SQL for data engineering, that will teach you everything you need to know for the Python and how to use it for the data engineering, and same for the SQL. So once you complete that course, you will have the solid foundation on Python and SQL. So if you don't know, then I will highly suggest you to go and do the courses that I have. And at the end, you need the Azure account, that I will tell you how to create it. And Azure provides 12-month free trial and $200 credit. So this project will be completely free. You do not have to pay anything. So we'll understand about how to create Azure account as we go forward in this video. Okay, so these are the simple prerequisites. You don't need to know anything. I will teach you everything in this single video only. Okay, so let's start by understanding our data source. So this is the data source that is available on Kaggle 2021 Olympic in Tokyo. So let's understand this data source in a little bit detail, and after that we will go deep dive into different Azure services available. Okay, so let's understand our data set. This data set is available on Kaggle. You can find the link in the description. So this data set contains the information about 11,000 athletes with 47 disciplines and 743 teams taking in part in Tokyo Olympics 2021. And we have like multiple different files available over here. So as you can see, we have the Excel format files available, but I have converted this into the CSV for the better data processing. So we have the athletes, coaches, and then we have the entries, medals, and team. So what you can do, if you want, you can download it. If you have the account on Kaggle, you can easily download that, but I've already done that for you and uploaded the same data on my GitHub repository, that the link you will find in the description. So we'll understand and just look to the data what it contains. So first we will look the athletes. Inside the athletes, what type of columns we have, the information we have available. Okay, so we have the person name, which is kind of like the athlete name, pretty simple. Then we have the country they are from, and then we have the disciplines such as basketball, rowing, such as wrestling, karate, and all of the other discipline that is performed on the Olympics. Okay, so this is the information about athletes. I will also suggest you to spend some time on looking at this data by yourself, so that you have much better understanding. Then we have the information about the coaches of that athlete. So we have the name, the country, discipline, and the event. So 4 columns, pretty easy to understand. Now we don't really need to understand each and every column and what they mean. You just have to get the idea of what the data looks, and you're good to go. Then we have the entries, gender. So in each and every discipline, how many were male and how many were female, and the total count. So as you can see, in RCB we had like 64 females, 64 males, and the total is this. In badminton we have the 86, 87, so total is this, something like this. So they have the information about like the number of genders that participated in the particular discipline. This is that. Then we have the information about medals. So for which country won the number of medals, such as gold, silver, bronze, and total, and the rank of it. So on the number one we have the USA, then China, then Japan, Great Britain, and everything. So the medals contains the information on the country level about the gold, silver, bronze, and the total base, and also the rank. Okay, and then we have the teams contains basically we have the team name, so each and individual team in that discipline, and the country name with the events. This is the high level overview of our data. We have the 5 files such as athlete, coaches, entries, medals, and team. All of these are in the CSV format that I have uploaded onto my GitHub repository, as you can see it over here. So you will find the link in the description. You can click onto this data because we will be using this as our data source. Okay, to get the data from here, we will extract data from my GitHub repository. You can create your own repository if you want, or you can just do something like this. You can just start this repository if you want to track this, and also you can fork it if you want to pull the data from my GitHub repository. So it is pretty simple, or you can just download the zip file over here if you want to upload the data. So three options. Okay, if you want to do it on your own, just download the zip, or you can fork it, and then from that URL you can upload the data to the our Azure clouds. You will understand how to do that, so don't worry about it, but I just wanted to give you the overview of this part right now. So this was all about our data set. Now we will understand the individual services that we will be using in our project. So let's continue with that. Okay, so I hope you got the understanding about the data set that we will be using for this project. Now let's spend some time and understand about the Azure cloud, because a lot of you might be beginner to Azure cloud. So I just want to give you the basic overview of various services and how the Azure portal is structured, so that when we get started it becomes much more easier for you guys to understand about all of these things. Okay, so this is our Azure account structure, what it looks like. Okay, whenever you create your account, when you sign up on Azure portal, you will have your own account. So this is one of the account that is available on Azure. So if I have my own account, it will be based on my email. So in this case it will be Darshil Parmar and my email. So this is my own account that I own. In the account, you can create multiple subscriptions. So as a free trial, you will have the free trial subscription that you can use to run some services or do your work. But as you go forward and when your free trial expires, then you will have to buy the subscription, and you can purchase the multiple subscription based on the need. So you can have the engineering subscription or the marketing subscription, and based on the budget you can allocate different subscription plan to different departments. So if you are working in a big company, you will have like multiple subscription according to the requirement. And then inside the subscription you have the resource group. Resource group is basically kind of like the logical grouping of different resources. The resources in this case can be Data Factory, data lake, Synapse Analytics, Azure Databricks. All of these are the services or the resources that is contained within that resource group, kind of like the folder, right? Inside the folder you store multiple files, so it is same like you create a resource group which is kind of like the folder, and inside that you can have like multiple resources. So as you can see, in the dev resource group we have the virtual machines, vnet, Azure SQL database. Same in the prod, we have some virtual machines, vnet and Azure SQL. And for the marketing we only have the Azure SQL available. So based on the subscription you can create the different resource group, and inside the resource group you have different resources. So this is the basic about the Azure cloud portal. I just wanted to give you understanding about this, because as we go forward we will be creating our own resource group. We will be assigning different resources to that resource group and the subscription. So just wanted to give you this basic understanding before going forward. Okay, now let's try to understand the Azure services. So we have multiple services available, we already talked about in our architecture diagram. So first one is we have the Data Factory. Now Data Factory is a data integration services that enables you to create, schedule, manage data pipeline for efficient data movement and transformation between various source and destination. So as we already understood, right, it is a service specially designed to create the data pipeline, so you can connect to multiple sources, create a simple flow. Like if you want to transform some data, you can also do that on Data Factory, and then load this data onto any target location. It can be data lake, it can be any data warehouse such as Snowflake or RDBMS. If you want to do that, you can easily do that on Data Factory. So this is what the overall idea behind the Data Factory. Then we have the Data Lake Gen 2. This is the solution that combines the capability of data lake with the power of Azure Blob. Now Azure Blob is basically the object storage, where when you store the file on Azure Blob, it is considered as an entire object. It is same as the Amazon S3 or Google Cloud Storage, where you cannot have the hierarchical manner of data storage. So inside the bucket, each and every file is considered as an object. But when you use the data lake solution, you can have the hierarchical file system, just like the file system we have it on our local computer. Like you can have a folder, inside folder you can create multiple folders, and then you can store your files. So this is what the data lake solution provides, and there are more functionalities that it provides on top of this, so you can go and check it out. But this is the core idea behind the Azure Data Lake Gen 2, is that it can handle the structured and unstructured data, and you can do your analysis on top of existing file and run your SQL queries. Okay, this is the Data Lake Gen 2. Then we have Azure Databricks. Now, to understand this, let me explain this to you in very simple manner. Okay, we have the Apache Spark, which is kind of like we use for the transformation data processing, right? So this is the open source framework for data processing. Then Databricks is basically kind of like the software company that provides the Apache Spark solution. Not Apache Spark, but it provides a lot of different solution. It's kind of like the managed service where you can write your Apache Spark, so you don't have to worry about managing your cluster and all of the other things. It's kind of like the online platform where you get everything at one place. When you try to install Apache Spark in your local PC, you have to do everything by yourself. You have to download it, install it, put it on your environment variable, and then you can do that. But over here, it will be managed by the Databricks company, so you do not have to worry about all of the other things. And they also provide you more services on top of it, so such as Delta Lake. So there are many different services that they provide on top of it, so it's kind of like the good solution. So what Azure did is they did the partnership with the Databricks, and they integrated their entire service on Azure cloud, so it is called as a Azure Databricks. Okay, Databricks is a unified analytics platform built on top of the Apache Spark, designed to help data engineers and scientists to collaborate on big data processing and machine learning work. So it provides a tool for exploration, processing, building machine learning model on scalable environment. Uh, everything that we talked about, it does. Okay. Then we have the Synapse Analytics. It's kind of like the data warehouse available on Azure Cloud, just like we have Google BigQuery, Amazon Redshift, Snowflake database, kind of like a data warehouse. So this is the Synapse Analytics available on Azure Cloud. So SQL data warehouse, cloud-based analytics service provided by Microsoft Azure. It combines big data warehousing into the single platform. You can also do a lot of things, such as you can also build a data transformation pipeline, also write the Spark code. So we will understand about the Synapse Analytics part as we go forward. Now we have all of these services available, right? But the fun thing about Azure is that these individual services has some kind of overlap. Now what I really mean is that inside the Synapse Analytics, you can create the data factory workflow also. So they have kind of like integrated all of these services together. So instead of using data factory differently or Azure Databricks differently, you can just use the single Synapse Analytics and do your entire work. You can create the data factory pipeline inside the Synapse Analytics. You can write the Spark code inside the Synapse Analytics and also do the SQL code. But to learn multiple services or various services, we have picked up different services so that you guys can have the understanding about different services in just one video. So what I've done is that I have divided the entire flow using the various services available on Azure, so that we learn more as we go forward. But always remember that you can do entire thing on Synapse Analytics. You can also do it on Databricks, and you can also do it on Data Factory, right? You can either use individual services or you can do everything on analytics over here. So for this tutorial, we will use the individual services so that you guys can have like better understanding about it, and you will understand what I'm talking about right now as we go forward in the actual execution video. You will have much better clarity on what I just discussed. Okay, so let's have the basic overview of what Data Factory looks like. So it has something like this. You will have this kind of portal where you can have like multiple transformation functions available. So if you want to copy data, if you want to create the data flow, if you want to integrate the Databricks notebook or Synapse Analytics some work SQL code, you can also do that. So we have multiple activities, and it is kind of like the drag and drop format. So you can just drag it, connect to the source, connect to the target. If you want to add some transformation function, you can do on top of it. So this is what the Azure Data Factory UI looks like. After that, we have the Databricks notebook. This is the format of the Databricks notebook. As you can see it over here, we are reading some file, we are displaying it, we have data available, compute service available, SQL editor, queries. The thing that I talked about, that you can also do everything inside the Databricks. You can also do a lot of things on Data Factory. And then we have the Synapse Analytics available over here. You can use SQL function to write query. You will get some analytics. You will have your tables available over here, and you can also create the data factory. There is the integrate button on the side that will help you to directly create the data factory pipeline like this, exactly like this UI in Synapse Analytics also. So it looks they have kind of like integrated everything in one service also, but they also have the different services for the same work, kind of like the redundancy, right? So this was all of the basics. Now don't get confused if you didn't understand the last part, why they have like mixture of the services. Even when I was starting to learn all of these things, it looked difficult initially, but you get the hang of it once you start executing all of these things by yourself. So I hope you understood about this. So now what we will do, we will create our Azure account. I will show you some steps how you can do that, and after that we will start with our execution. Okay, so let's understand how to create Azure account. It is pretty simple, nothing complicated. All you have to do is write Azure Cloud over here, and you will find the Azure Cloud. The first thing, you can go over here, and first thing is you have to create your own account. So you can click onto this free account and you will be redirected to this page. As you can see, Azure provides 12 months on the popular services. So for the 12 months, you can use all of these popular services available. Now, for our data services, we do not have a lot of services available. So for that, they also provide the 200 USD credit. So you can use this 200 credit, and we can easily complete our Azure data engineering project within, let's say, $10 to $15 max if you use it properly. So you can use this credit. You have this credit available for 30 days. So make sure once you create your own account, you complete this project within that time span, or you'll have to create the new account with the new number and your credit card details. So make sure you do that. So this is the thing that you need to know, that you can complete this project for free. You do not have to pay anything. So you will get the $200 credit, so you can use that to complete this project. But make sure you complete this within 30 days. You do not spend more time on it, and once you do that, uh, you're good to go. Okay, so it is very simple. You can just click on to start free. Once you click on the start free, it will redirect you to create the Azure or Microsoft account. So let me just open this onto the incognito mode, because I already have an account. So I click onto the start free, it will redirect me to the Azure portal, so that I can create my account over here. So all you have to do is create the account or log into your account. If you don't have one, you can just click onto this create account. If you already have the account, then you can log into the Azure portal. So once you log in, you will be redirected to some form where you will have to fill the information about yourself, your phone number, and all of the other things. So once you fill that, you will see something like this. All you have to do is click on to agree and go on next. Here you will have to enter your details about credit card. So if you have the credit card or debit card, you can just add it over here. So you can just add the information. This is only to verify that you are the actual user. So don't worry, you will not get charged. Just use any credit card or the debit card details you have, so that they can verify that you are the actual user. You will get some OTP and you are done. So once you do that, all you have to do is click on to next and you can sign up. So this is pretty simple. So once you create your account, you will be redirected to page something like this. If you haven't, then you can just go to the portal.azure.com and just log in, and you will see this page again. If on this page they ask you to subscribe for the free trial, you can just click on to that button and add your payment information, and you will be able to start your free trial then and there. So this was all about creating the Azure portal. Now once you have this, then we can start with the execution of our project. So I'll see you there. So the project that you are about to do was made possible because of our today's sponsor, Project Pro. I have taken this project from their website. So this entire project, you can also find it on projectpro.io. Project Pro is a platform where you can find the top big data projects and data science projects. So if you want to build your own portfolio, you can go to the projectpro.io and visit the website, and you will find a lot of different projects. They have more than 200 projects available in the big data domain, and these projects are created by top industry experts. You will get everything from guided videos, codes, PPT. Each and everything is available on Project Pro website, and the best thing is they are providing 10% flat discount on this platform. So if you are interested in learning and doing more of these projects, then you can check the link in the description. So you can visit projectpro.io. You can just sign up over there and they will contact you. You can just give my name and they will give you 10% then and there. So I hope you take advantage of these useful platform available that will help you to grow in your career. So you can visit projectpro.io to learn more about it, and let's start with our project execution. So let's start with our project execution. So we will start with understanding the architecture diagram in little bit detail. So over here we have our data source. We already understood about our data. We will be using the Kaggle data, the Tokyo Olympic one, and then we will copy that data from the data source to our Azure data storage using Data Factory. So we will just build a simple pipeline where we will just take the raw data and upload the data onto the data storage, which is the data lake gen 2. Once we have our data available onto the raw storage, then we will use Azure Databricks. We will write our PySpark code. We will do some basic transformation. Again, the goal of this entire project is to build a data pipeline and show you how you can build a data engineering project. So we are not mainly concerned about the making the logic right of the transformation. We want to just build a simple pipeline. So we will try to remove some duplicates and we will drop some columns, rename it, and then we will upload our data back to the data lake storage, which is the transform data. So this is our the initial pipeline where we will load our data, do some basic transformation, and then again load that data onto the data lake, and then we will use the Synapse Analytics to understand our data, so we can easily write the SQL query on top of these data that we have transformed and extract the insight from it. And if you want, you can build a dashboard using Power BI, Looker Studio, and Tableau. So we will do everything step by step. So the first thing you need to do is go and log into your Azure portal. So once you log into your Azure portal, it looks something like this. Now the first thing we want to do is ingest our data to the data lake storage. So as per this architecture diagram, we need two things. One is a data factory to create the simple pipeline, and second is the data lake gen 2, which is where we will store our raw data. So we will start by creating these two things first individually. So the first thing you need to do is just on the search bar, you can just write storage account. You will see something like this, or you can also go on the sidebar and also search for the storage account. It is available over here. So click on the storage account and you will be redirected to this page. Over here we want to create our storage account. So first click onto this create storage account and you will see something like this. Over here first you need to select the subscription. We already understood about all of this. So if you are using the free trial, you can use the free trial. If your free trial is over, then you might have to pay for the subscription. So if you have just created your Azure account, then you might already have the $200 for free to use. So you can just use the free trial. And for the resource group, we will create the new resource group, and the resource group we will give Tokyo Olympic, okay, something like this, and just click on to okay. This is our resource group. So inside the resource group, all of the different resources get stored. We already understood about this concept at the start of this video. So we created our Tokyo Olympic resource group. After that, you need to give the name to your storage account. So I can just give, let's say, Tokyo Olympic data, and this should be unique across the Azure universe. So if it is already taken, you can just add your name at the end and it will make it unique. Okay, so this is the first thing you need to do. This is my Azure. This is my storage name. Then you need to select the region. For the region, you can select the nearest region as per your location. So for me it is Southeast Asia, but if you are living in US or in any other country, then you can select the region according to that. After that, we need to select the performance and we will keep it standard. We don't want to touch anything. And then we have the redundancy. This basically means if you want to replicate your data across different data centers or region, just for the tutorial purposes, we will keep this default, but it changes if you are working in the real world. If you have specific requirement, then you can choose the different options from this and make your data available across different regions. So now just click on to next. Over here we don't want to touch anything. This is more of the advanced thing. So once you enable the hierarchical namespace, that means all of the files that you store inside the container of your storage account will be available in the hierarchical format, the way it stores in our local PC. So generally when you store any data to any object storage such as S3 or Google storage or just Azure blob storage, they store the entire data as an object. But once you enable the hierarchical namespace, you can access your data just like the simple directory, the way you do it on your local computer. Okay, so this is important. You need to select the hierarchical namespace when you are creating the storage account, and all of the other things you don't need to touch. Just click on to next. We have the networking. Again, we don't want to touch anything. Just click on the data protection. Just click next, tags, review, and this will take few seconds to review all of the settings that we have created. And once the validation is done, then you can click onto this create and it will start creating your storage account. Okay, so it will take few minutes. Once it is done, then we will continue with our video. So our deployment of our storage account is complete. You will see something like this. All you have to do is click onto the go resources, and this is what the entire page looks like of the storage account. As you can see it over here, you have multiple things. Do not get scared just by looking all of this information. It will take you few minutes, but as you start working on this, you will get used to all of this information. So let's try understanding what all of these things means. Okay, So over here we have a lot of things. On the side panel we have the overview. This gives the entire overview of what our storage account actually is. So we have the resource group. This particular storage account, the Tokyo Olympic data is inside this particular resource group. The location is provided. The primary and the secondary region is already provided. As you can see, we have the subscription ID, the replication, and all of the other things. And also we have other things available such as security, networking, information, and all of the other things. So this is pretty common in all of the different cloud providers, so do not get scared. You don't really need to understand all of these things right now, but as you go forward you can start learning them one by one, and as the opportunity comes you can understand them. Okay, over here we also have many different things. We have the activity log if you want to track the different things that have happened, tags, IAM control, data migration, and all of the other things. The important thing that we are really interested is the container. So as we already discussed at the start of this video, in the Azure storage account, we have four things. One is the container where you can store the data as an object. You have the file share, queue, and the table. So we will be storing our data inside the container. So you can just click onto this container and click onto this create container button, the plus one. Over here, you just have to give the name of your container. So I will give the name as to again Tokyo Olympic data. Okay, something like this. And this is my container name, and I'll just click onto the create. This created my container, so this is where we will store all of our data. So you can click onto this container and this will go inside this particular container. So as you can see it over here, this is our storage account and this is our container. So in this we want to create two folders. Okay, click onto this add directory. First folder that I want to create is raw data. This is where we will store all of our raw data as it is from the data source that we extract. And the second folder that I want to create is the transform data. Okay, we have the two folders available, and it is pretty simple to understand right now that okay, we will get our data from this particular data source using Azure Data Factory. We will ingest this raw data onto our raw data folder. So we'll have properly we will have all of our raw data stored onto one folder, and then using the Azure Databricks transformation, then we will load our data onto the transform folder. So we will have this is how generally things work in the real world. When you extract the data, you put that data onto one location. Once you transform it, you put that data onto the another location. So we have these two folders available. So this is pretty much done. We already set up our Azure data lake. Now what we want to do is we want to copy the data from the data source and put the data onto our target location. And for that we need to use Azure Data Factory. So this part about the storage, creating storage container and the data lake is done. Second thing we want to do is search for the Azure Data Factory. Just search data factory. You will see something like this. You can right click onto this and open it onto the new link, so that we can have all of these different tabs open, so we can easily navigate between different things. Okay, so this is again what the Azure Data Factory console looks like. Just like the storage container, all you have to do is click onto the create data factory. Okay, once you click onto this, it will redirect you to the similar page just like the storage account. Over here, resource group. Now we don't want to create the new resource group because we already have our Tokyo Olympic resource group. So just select that, give the name over here. So let's say Tokyo Tokyo Olympic data factory. I'll just write the df. Okay, region, you can select the nearest region. So I'll go with, let's say, Southeast Asia. Now there are chances that sometimes there is a limit of the resources you can grant onto the particular region. So if you face any error that the quota exceeds on this particular region, then you can select any different region, it doesn't matter. So if you get any error, then just select different region and you'll be good to go. So this is all we need. Next, just click on to next. I don't want to configure git, so you can just click on to next. Over here again, this is all of the networking part. We don't worry about it. Then we have the data encryption. We don't want to touch this tags. This will review all of your settings, and once it is done, you can just click on to the create, and this will start initializing your data factory resources. So as you can see, the deployment is completed. Now all you have to do is click onto the go to resources, just like we did it for the storage account, and you will see the new panel for the data factory. So on the side panel we have a lot of different things available, just like the storage account, such as IAM, activity log, the networking part. So if you want to work with the configuration side, you can always do that. But as a data engineer, you are mainly interested working on the data side, because if you are working in any company, these things about the networking and the security aspect will be handled by the specific team. But having understanding of those things also helps you to become a better engineer. So it is always recommended to so it is always recommended for you to know all of these things, but it is not mandatory. And for the this tutorial purpose, we are not deep diving into the networking or the security part. We just mainly want to create the data pipeline. Okay, so we have the Azure Data Factory available. The thing you need to do is click onto the launch studio, and this will redirect you to the Azure Data Factory panel. Okay, so this will take few minutes to load. As you can see, we have our data factory ready, Tokyo Olympic DF, and this is where you can create the pipeline to extract data from the different sources and upload that data onto the target location. So we have ingest option, orchestrate, transform, and configuration. We already understood about all of these services at the start of this video, so I don't want to deep dive into the theoretical part of it. I just want to mainly focus on the execution side of it. You can just click onto these arrows and check about all of these different options. Let me just close this part and this part. Okay, so it looks cleaner. We have the home. This is where all of your data factory will get showed. We have the author. So once you create, so we have the home, then we have the author. This is where you actually create your pipelines. Then we have the monitor. So once your pipelines are running, if you want to monitor them, if any error has occurred, then you can easily track them over here. Then here's the management part. This is basically the configuration side of the thing. So if you want to change some settings, if you want to create the link services, that we will do it right now, then the run times and all of the different parameters are available. So you can again spend time onto this and understand if you want, but we will go forward and we will start ingesting our data. So all you have to do is click onto this author part, and as you can see, we have like a lot of different options available. So all you have to do is click onto this author and click onto this plus icon. Over here, I want to create pipeline. Okay, so again, we have a lot of different options available, such as if you want to create pipeline based on CDC, dataset, data flow, and everything. But we want to create a simple pipeline, so just click onto the pipeline, and over here, just give the name as data ingestion. Okay, I'm just giving it this a name, data ingestion, so that if we have like multiple pipelines available, we can easily identify it. Okay, so this is like the best practice. So then this is my pipeline window, right? So let me just collapse this. This part you can just click onto this arrow because we don't need it. You can also click onto this arrow, so this is much cleaner to understand everything that we do. You can also click onto this properties, and this will also collapse. So now you can see everything that you do on this panel. So we have the activities available inside the data factory. The activities are basically the operations that you want to perform on specific data. So we have like move, transform. For the notebook, we have like if you want to run the specific notebook from Synapse Analytics, you can do that. Azure Data Explorer, functions, batch services, data factories. So you have a lot of different things that you can integrate inside the data factory. And this is the fun part about the Azure, is that inside the Synapse Analytics, you can create the data factory pipeline. Inside the data factory, you can use Azure Databricks. So they have like combination of these services that are compatible with each other, and the features are similar across all of these services. So you can use simple Synapse Analytics, which is the analytics service available, and inside the Synapse Analytics, you can also create the data factory and write the Spark code. So uh, just to give you the understanding about various services, I have picked up the different services so that you can understand it. Okay, so in our case, we want to copy our data, and either you can click onto this move and transform and drag this copy data, or you can just search over here copy data, and you will get the same. Okay, the first thing, we want to copy our data from our API or the data source to our location, which is the data storage. This is our copy activity. Inside the copy activity, we want to give the source where our data is actually stored, and then we want to give the sink where we want to load our data. So let's try understanding where our data is stored. So I have uploaded all of our data that we want to use in this tutorial onto my GitHub repository. Now, why did I do that? because on Kaggle, if you want to access the data, you have to do a lot of different steps. You have to get the access to the API and get the authentication keys and stuff like that. So I downloaded the data and I uploaded data onto the GitHub repository. You'll get the link of this GitHub repository in the description, so you can go and check this data. And using this GitHub repository as our data source, we will extract data from this repository and load our data onto our Azure location. Okay, so we have 5 files available. We already understood about all of this data, so I don't want to spend time explaining you about each and every file because we already understood about it. So we have the athlete.csv. You can just click onto this, and this is our csv file. What you really want to do is click onto this raw button. Once you click onto this raw button, it will redirect you to this particular page. Okay, this page contains this URL, which is the raw URL of this csv file. So this is the first step, that you want to get the URL of that particular file if you want to extract the data. So all you have to do is just copy this. So what we will be doing, we will be using this URL to extract the data inside our data factory and load that data onto the target location. Okay, so go back to your data factory. Over here, click onto the source, you will see at the bottom, and first we need to create the link from our data factory to our this GitHub repository for this particular file. Okay, so we will have to do it one by one. We can't do it together. So for each and every file that we have available on our GitHub repository, we have 5 files available. We will have to get the URL of each and every file, and we will have to connect it with our source. So first, you can go to your data factory, click onto this new icon. So as you can see, we can extract data from multiple places. We have the Amazon RDS, S3, blob storage. So if you already have your data stored onto the blob storage, you can also extract it. You can also access the data from the Azure Data Lake Gen 2. Then again, we have multiple options available, and from that data source, you can easily access and integrate the data factories. From these options, what we are mainly interested in is HTTP. Okay, because this raw data is accessed through our HTTP server. Now this is about basic about networking, but you can just hit onto this particular URL using HTTP and you will get this data downloaded to your computer also. So all you have to do is click onto this HTTP, click on to continue. Now we want to specify the file format. Again, Azure Data Factory supports multiple types of files such as Avro, binary, delimited text, Excel file, JSON file, ORC, XML, and Parquet. So in this case, our file is stored as a CSV file. So you can just click onto this delimited CSV and click continue. Now we will give some logical name to this particular property. So over here, I'm copying the athlete CSV. So you can just give the athletes over here, just copy the name from this location and put it over here. Now we have to create something called as a link service. What it really means is that we are creating the link from our data source to the GitHub repository that is available. So you will understand once we do that. Just click on to the new and you will be redirected to this page. So over here, just give the name as athlete HTTP. Okay, just for our understanding that this is our source. Description, you can give whatever you want. Over here, the main thing is that we want to give the base URL, and the URL that we want to give is this one, the GitHub repository raw one. Make sure you copy this raw URL. You do not copy the URL before this, because this URL is different than the actual raw URL, and you can get the raw URL just by clicking onto this raw button on the GitHub repository and you will get this raw URL. Okay, so put that raw URL over here. Authentication type, you can click onto the anonymous. Okay, you can also put your GitHub credentials such as your username and password, but as this is open, you don't have to put any authentication. So just click onto this anonymous and you are done. Click onto the create. So this will create the link service, which is the HTTP link service from your data factory and your GitHub repository. Then and after that you can just leave the relative URL, and over here make sure you have the first row as a header, because in our file our first row is our header, which is the heading of our column. So person name, country, and discipline. So make sure this is ticked. Just click none over here and click on to OK. Now what we did, we just linked our source to our data factory, and you can click onto this preview data over here, you will see, and you will be able to get the complete view of your data as it is. So as you can see, person name, country, discipline, and we have our all of the data available as it is from this GitHub repository. inside our data factory. So if you see this, that means you were able to successfully create the connection from the data factory to the GitHub account. Once you do this, leave everything as it is. You don't have to do anything else. Then we want to do a sync. Before sync, let's just give the name to this copy data. So you can just click on to the general part, and let's just give the athletes. Let me just copy this athletes, not raw, athletes. Okay, athletes, and we are done. The source is done. Now we want to do is about the sync. This is basically we want to load our data onto our Azure Data Lake storage. For this, all you have to do, as you can see, we have like the sources available, but over here we have to create the new source and connect to the Azure Data Lake Gen 2. So you can click onto this Gen 2, just click onto the new and click onto the Gen 2 and click onto the continue. Now you have the option, if you want to convert your data from a CSV file to ORC Parquet, you can also do that, but we'll stick with the CSV file for the ease of understanding, and just click on to the continue. Now we will do the same thing as we did it for our GitHub, but over here we have the target as ADLS. So you can just write ADLS, Azure Data Lake Service Gen 2. Okay, so we will just give the name as ADLS. For the link services, click on to the create new. You can just keep it as it is, Azure Data Lake Storage. Over here, subscription, you have to select the free trial. Everything else is default, don't touch it. And the storage account, you just select the storage account that we created, the Tokyo Olympic data. In your case, it might be different based on the name that we gave while creating this storage account. Now it might start making sense, why did we create this account first? Because if we did not create the storage account, we will not have this particular options available as our target location. So as per the architecture diagram, we are extracting data from our data source using Data Factory, and we are loading that data to the Gen 2. So in this case, we have the GitHub as our data source that we already linked our service. Now as a target, which is a sync source, we have the storage name, which is our storage account. So you can just click onto the create, and your link service is created. We created the link from our Azure Data Factory to our Azure Data Lake storage. Over here, you have to select the path where you want to store your data. So you can just click onto this browse icon on the side, click onto your Tokyo Olympic, and we want to store our data onto the raw data. Okay, so click onto the raw data folder and okay. So you will have the file path available, Tokyo Olympic raw data, and we also have to give the file name. If you don't provide the file name, it will put some random name. So in this case, we will keep the file name same, which is the athlete CSV. Let's just convert this into the lowercase a. Okay, and first row is my header. Import schema, just click on to none because we don't have any schema attached to it, and just click on to okay. All looks good. Now all you have to do, we have the source available, we have the sync available. Click on to the validate. This will basically validate all of your settings, and if you don't see any error available over here, that means it looks good. And you can just click onto the debug button. Debug basically means it will run your code just to test if it works or not. So we will run our pipeline. So once you click onto the debug, you will see our pipeline is running. It is currently queued. That means we will copy our first file from our GitHub repository to our Azure Data Lake storage. So you can have the currently it is queued. It will take few minutes to run. Once it is done, as you can see, it is succeeded, and we can go to our raw data. As you can see, the athlete CSV is available on our storage account. How cool is that, right? We were able to extract data from the GitHub, which is stored somewhere in the world, create the link using Azure Data Factory, use simple copy activity, and load our data to our storage account. And this is what generally happens in real world, right? Instead of Azure Data Factory, you might use something else, but this is the simple process. You have data stored across different systems, you try to integrate it, get that data and put that data onto the raw storage, then you do the transformation. So this is what we did it for the one file. Now what you want to do, you want to repeat this activity for all of the different files that we have available inside our inside our GitHub repository. So you can get this copy data again. Over here, I'll go back, and inside my data, I will get the coaches. You can click onto the raw. First thing is just copy the name of the coaches and rename this to the coaches. For the source, we will have to create the new source. for this particular URL, because the last URL about the athlete was different than this URL. So all you have to do is, for the source, click on to the new one, just search HTTP. I will just fast forward this a little bit so we don't waste much time onto this, because this is the same thing. Just click on to the CSV, click continue. Over here, give the name as coaches so that you can always understand this. Over here, link services, click on to the create new link services. Give coaches as HTTP. Everything is same. Over here, provide the base URL, authentication type anonymous, and just click on to the create. This will create the connection with the coaches file. Click on to OK. You can click on the preview data, and you will be able to see the preview of the coaches data is available. Then go to the sync. For the sync, just click on to the new, search for the Azure Data Lake Gen 2. Continue. Again, select the CSV. Link services, you can use the existing link services. Now you don't have to create the new link services because we have already connected with our storage account. So we will be storing everything over here. So in this case, you don't want to create the new link services. Just rename this to coaches. So let me just get this coaches. We'll just write the coaches sync. Okay. And for the file path, again, we go over here, click onto the raw, click on to OK. Just give the name as coaches.csv. Click over here none and click on to OK. And then we were able to create the sync for this. Same thing. So we created, so we were able to do it for the coaches. So I can just easily connect this. Okay, just use this arrow, and now you can just click on to the validate. If you don't see any error, then you're good, and click on to debug. So the way it will work is that first it will complete this. Once it is completed, then it will complete the coaches part. Okay, so we will just again see all of these into the action right now. So as you can see it over here, our athlete is complete and the coaches is complete. You can go to the storage account, refresh this, and you will see two files. As you can see, I made some error while writing this file coaches.csv. So let me just remove this. This is comma.csv, and what I can do, I can go over here on the sync. I can just open this one and fix this coaches comma csv to dot csv, and it looks good. So this is what we did for the coaches. You can again run this and get the file. Now you have to repeat the same action for the rest of these three files. So I will just fast forward this and complete this, but it should be pretty easy. So I'm just going to do the same thing for, let's say, get the copy data. Okay, over here, what do I have? I have this, enter gender, then I'll create the new link services, enter gender, HTTP. For the base URL, I will provide the raw for the raw URL, this one. I'll put it over here. Authentication is not needed. Just click onto this. None. First row is header, and I was able to create the source. I can click onto the preview data. It looks good. I'm just trying to fast forward because we already understood this. So you can again do it by yourself. If you want to do it with me, you can do it with me also. Okay. So for the sync, just click onto the new Azure Data Lake Storage CSV file. Over here, I have this entries gender. So you can just say entries gender sync. Okay. And click onto the Azure Data Lake Storage. Go over here, Tokyo Olympic raw data. Select OK. And the file name is our entries gender.csv. So I'll just write entries gender.csv. This is, let me just get this CSV, none. Click on to OK. No. Okay, it should be none. Okay, okay. And then I'll do the same for other things. This is entries gender. I'll do it for next file. medals. I'll just click onto the raw one. Over here, I'll copy the medals, put it over here, go to the source, click on to new, HTTP, continue, CSV file, medals, and then click onto the new link services, medals, HTTP, base URL is this one. I'll put it over here. Authentication is anonymous. Click none, everything looks good. You can just hit on the preview data. Okay, I can see my data. Then I can just go to the sync, click onto the new Azure Data Lake Gen 2 CSV file. Over here, I'll just put medals sync. Okay, link services, just select the Azure Data Lake storage. File system is this one, raw, and the file name is medals.csv, none. Okay, medals done, and the last one is this one, teams. Let me just do this. Okay, I'll get the copy. Over here for the copy, first thing is teams. For the source, I'll create control new, HTTP, continue, CSV file, teams, link service, create new, teams, HTTP, base URL, I'll copy this GitHub URL, authentication is this, create, everything looks good, click on to OK, click on to preview data, looks fine. For the sync, click on to the new Azure Data Lake Gen 2 CSV file. Over here, I can just say teams sync link service this data lake. Go over here, raw data, click over OK, medals.csv. First row is header, click on to new none, OK, and it's done. So let me just connect this. Can get this and put it over here, and get this, and you can get this over here. Okay, very simple. People charge thousands of rupees for this. I'm just doing it for the free. So appreciate if you guys can like this video, comment it out, and subscribe to the channel. Okay, so this is what it looks like, right? We have copy data activity created for the athletes, coaches, gender, medals, and the teams. Click on to validate, close, and just click on to the debug. Now it will start running our entire pipeline. Okay, and we will have all of the data available on our Azure Data Lake Gen 2. So athlete is running. Let's just wait for this to complete. Okay, so let's see how much time it takes to copy data from the HTTP server to our Azure Data Lake Gen 2. So I'll just wait for this. Loading activity runs. So athlete is complete. Now it is currently copying the coaches. So you can go over here. You can also refresh this. So we have the athlete coaches file is available. It is in progress. Let's just wait. You can also refresh this. Okay, entries gender is also complete. We have seen medals is also available, and let's just wait. This might be done. Teams, we are waiting for the teams. Yeah, all of these is succeed. Okay, teams did not come. Let me check for the teams. Open team sync. Okay, wait. Yeah, so I made a mistake for the teams. I gave the name as medals, so should have given teams.csv, and yeah, it should look good. So I can just run this again. So we have medals as it is, and for the teams, yeah, it is teams.csv. So I made a mistake while writing our teams.csv. I renamed it as a medal.csv because I was doing it very fast. So make sure you don't make the same mistake as me, and once it is complete, we were able to see all of the files. So I'll just skip to once it completes so we can move forward. Okay, so the pipeline ran successfully, as you can see it over here. If I refresh this, you will see everything is succeeded. And if I go over here, you will see all of the 5 files are available. If you want, you can also go ahead, download one of the files, and if you just want to verify this, if this file really makes sense or not, you can see everything looks good. So nothing is broken. So we just completed our these two parts, which is getting data from this data ingestion and the raw data store. So we just completed these two parts, which is ingestion of the data and storing of the data. So if you reach to this section, then congratulations, you just completed the first part. I'll highly appreciate if you can like this video and comment below that you reached to this section. That way I will know that you actually completed this project and if you found this helpful or not. Now we will jump onto the Azure Databricks part where we will write our basic transformation code. Okay, so over here again, go to your Azure portal. So if you want, you can close this because we will not need this. So now what we want to do is we want to write our Databricks. So you can go to, just search on the top, Databricks. You will find something as Azure Databricks. Just click over here, and we're gonna repeat the same process as we did at the initial stage. Just click onto the Azure Databricks service. Over here, your subscription should be free trial. Your resource group, Tokyo Olympics, that we already know. Over here, the workspace name, you can give, let's say, Tokyo Olympic DB, which is the data bricks. For the data factory, we use the DF. Region, select the nearest region according to your location. Over here, we have the different pricing tier. You can select the standard, premium, and trial. We will go with the premium one, and then just click onto the next. Click onto the next, just next, review and create, and it will take few minutes to validate it. Once it is done, you can just click onto the create and it will start deploying our Azure Databricks workspace. Okay, so we did the same process. It is pretty simple. You have nothing really to do, just put some name, select some options, and you're done. You might be already getting used to this process because it is pretty straightforward. You just have to first thing, so the first thing always when you are working on any service, you have to create the workspace around it. Just put your resource group and some name and select some options, and then you're done. You can also check the documentation if you want to understand more about the different options, but for the tutorial purposes, this is good enough. Okay, so we'll wait for this to complete, and once it is complete, then we will move forward. Okay, so the deployment of our Azure Databricks is complete, and as you can see, you can just click onto the Go Resources, and over here you will be again redirected to the resources page. It has the similar feature. On the left side, you have multiple options available, but the thing that we are mainly interested in is this, the workspace. Just click onto the launch workspace and you will be redirected to the Azure Databricks workspace where you can create the notebook instance and all of the other things to write your code. So once the login, the authentication part is complete, you will see something like this. So this is what the Databricks workspace looks like. Nothing complicated. It is pretty simple. Once you hear about all of these things from the outside world, the Azure Databricks and all the stuffs, it might look complicated, and some part of it is complicated, but overall it is pretty simple. So don't get afraid of trying all of these things. Whenever you want to learn anything, just go to the platform and create the account and get started. Okay, so that is the best way to learn. So over here again, we have multiple options. As you can see it on the side, we have the new workspace. This is where everything you do will get appear over here. The recent is basically your recent activity. Then you have the data. So whatever data basis you create onto this workspace, you can also check it over here. You have the workflow, the compute services, basically where your actual code runs on the compute resources, and a lot of different things is available. So first thing is we want to create the compute because we want to write our Spark code. It should run onto something, and for that you can just click onto the create compute. Okay, so the first thing over here you see is the policy. Now policy is basically defines the type of services that you want to use. So we'll go with the unrestricted, but you have multiple options, such as if you want the personal compute, if you want to have the compute shared between different users, you can use that. So we will go with the unrestricted. So we have the two things, one is the multi-node and the single node. For the multi-node, you have the options of setting up minimum worker and the maximum worker. So you can set the number of computers should run in the backend. So if you want to understand about the Apache Spark worker thing, you can check my learn Apache Spark 10 minutes. You will find the link in the description. But what it really means is that you will have multiple machines and it will scale automatically depending on the code that you write on your notebook. So for the tutorial purposes, we will just go with a single node. We don't want to, waste resources just like that. So just click onto the single node. This is a single user. You can try multi-node, but you might get an error because there's a limitations Azure provide. So just click onto the single node. Runtime, you will go with the default one. You can select the multiple runtime, but we will go with the default one. Node type, again, as you can see, the memory or the cores you want. So we'll go with the standard one, which is a 14 GB in memory and the 4 cores, because we don't have like the very large data. But as per the requirement, if you're working in the real world, you can choose uh, the size of the compute. And once everything looks good, you can just click onto this create compute. Okay, so we will wait for this. So it will take few minutes to spin up this computer, and once it is done, we will continue forward. Okay, so the cluster creation process for Azure Databricks is complete. You can click onto this compute thing and you will see everything is ready over here. So now what we want to do, we want to write our Spark code where we can easily read our data and transform our data so that we can again store that data onto the storage location. So as per the architecture diagram, we have the data stored over here. We created our Azure Databricks workspace. Now what we want to do, we want to write simple code to get the data from here, transform some data and put that data onto the target location. So you can click onto this new and click onto this notebook. You will see something like this. You can just close this. You can close this. Let's give the name to this notebook, Tokyo Olympic Art Transformation. So now what we want to do is we want to create the connection from this Azure Databricks to our Azure Data Storage so that we can easily access the data. So the steps to create the connection between these two services, it's a little bit different, and we will try to understand that in simple way. Okay, so the thing you need to do is you need to mount this Azure Data Lake storage to the data factory so that you can access the file from it. So mounting is basically attaching. So just like we use the USB cable to attach the hard disk physically, we have to mount this particular service to the Azure Data Factory, provide some authentication in the backend so that we can easily access the data. So there are some steps involved. So you already have this notebook available on the GitHub, so you can copy the code and work with me. Okay, so the first thing you need to make sure is over here is you select your Spark cluster. So in this case, I've already attached my cluster. If it is not in your case, then you have to attach it. After that, go over here, search for the app registration. This is a step involved that you have to create some app and get some credentials to create the connection from Azure Databricks to the ADLS, and we will understand. And you can search about it, but just try to follow along with me, and you will at the end you will understand why we did all of these things. Okay, so just give the name as, let's say, app 01, something like this, and just click onto the register. You don't have to do anything else. This will register the app. For that, we need two things from over here. We need the client ID and we need the tenant ID. So you can open the notepad or you can open any Word document, and you can just copy this client ID, application client ID, copy this and paste it over here. And then you can copy this tenant ID and paste it over here. So we will need all of these things as we go forward. So just copy this. After that, once you have your client ID and the tenant ID, then you need to click onto the certificate and the secrets. Over here we need to create our secret ID. We will also need this for accessing the ADLS. So click onto the new client secret, just give this name as the secret key, something like this, and click on to add. Copy this value. You can just click onto this button and just give the name as secret key. Okay, now again, for the tutorial purposes, I'm exposing all of this value, but I will delete all of these resources so that it doesn't get leaked. So just for the understanding, just follow along with me and try to understand what I'm doing. So you have the application ID, tenant ID, and the secret ID available. So you will have these three things. Now you can use these three credentials to create the connection from your Databricks to the ADLS. So once we have these three things, then we can start writing the code and start integrating, and we will face some errors and we will understand how to solve them. Okay, so let me just pull out the code. So the first thing we need to do is create the configuration format. So you can get this configuration thing from the notebook available on the GitHub repository. Over here we need to replace few things. So instead of this client ID, you can copy your client ID and paste it over here. Secret ID, you can copy your secret ID and paste it over here. And your tenant ID, you can copy this and paste it on over here on the endpoint. Okay, so these three locations, just put your all of these things. So this is the basic authentication process you need to go through to create the connection from your this data factory to the data lake storage. Now in this case, what we can do, we can also put this onto the key vault. So generally on Azure you can search for the key vault. Key vault is basically where you can store all of your secret key, password, and everything about the resources, and then you can use the key vault to access all of these things. So it is not exposed inside the code, so all of these things do not get stored inside the code. But for now we will just ignore that part. We don't want to go there because there are some few steps involved to create the key vault and get the access. So we will put all of this credential inside the code, but remember this is not the best practices when you're working in the real world. For the tutorial purposes it is easier to understand this way, but in the real world when you go, you will have to use something called as a key vault to properly access all of these keys and IDs securely. Okay, so we have the configs. After that we have something called as a mounting point. So we have this format db.utils_fs.mount. It needs three things. One is the source. So for the source we have something called as this. On the data side you have to provide your container name. So you can just go to the storage. This is a little bit complicated and I hated this part when I was working with the Azure, because they have a lot of this authentication process that you have to go through to create the basic connection. But this is what we have to do, right? So over here, first is we want to copy the container name Tokyo Olympic, and you can put it over here. Yeah, over here you can put the Tokyo Olympic data. This is my storage account name, and after that you can copy the container name. So container name is Tokyo Olympic data. So in this case I will put it over here. So make sure this is my container name, which is this one. This is my container and this is my storage account name. So do not get confused between these two. First we have the container at the storage account name. Let me just comment it over here. Container at storage account name. Okay, so container at storage account name. Do not make mistake, because if you do, then you will get an error. Then you have to do something as slash and provide the folder name that you want to mount. So in this case I have the raw. Okay, you can just leave it as it is, you don't have to provide that. And you can just over here you can just mount as, let's say, uh, Tokyo Olympic. Okay, as it is, and everything is set, the configuration is attached. You can just run this and we will see some error. And the first error is I missed the double quote. Let's see. Oh, it's a single quote, not double quote. Let's see what other error do we get. Hopefully we should not get any error, but if we might get the error about the permissions. But if it does not, then it should be good. So we'll just wait for the few minutes once it runs the code. And as you can see, we were able to successfully create the connection to the Azure Data Factory. And you can easily check that just by doing something called as ls. You can do the file system first, file system ls and mnt. Just copy this part, mount. Okay, remove this. If I run this, if this connection was successful, then we will be able to see all of our files from this mount location. So we are getting the error, which is basically we do not have the permission to access the files that are stored onto the data lake, and for that we need to explicitly give the access. So what we are really doing is that we are using the app registration that we created. Using the credentials of the app, we are trying to access the data that is stored onto the data lake, but we have not given the permission to that particular app to access the data from the data lake. And for that, all you have to do, go onto your storage over here, the container side, click onto this your Tokyo Olympics, click onto this access control IAM, add role assignment, and over here I can just give access to, let me see, a storage blob contributor. Okay, just click onto the storage blob contributor role. This basically, we are giving the access to the app to be able to read, write, or delete any object onto this container. Click onto next. Over here, just select the members, and you will see you have to write the app 01, which was our app name. You can just select it over here, select, you will see the app is available here. Click on to next, review assign, and this will add a new role inside your IAM so that you can give the permission to this app to access the data from the Olympic data, and wait for the few minutes. And once you run this, you will see you will have the access to the raw data and transform data, and you will be able to access the data inside all of these different repositories. Again, you will face a lot of errors while doing this. If you don't, congratulations, you were able to do that, but you will face few errors while doing this. So make sure you are using the secret key properly over here. Okay, make sure all of these things are proper, the container name and the storage account is properly set, and you provide the access to the contributor to the app. Once you do this, wait for the few minutes and you should be able to see this output. So now we are able to mount this particular entire data lake to this location. We can try reading one file, and to do that we have something called as athletes. Let's say we read this athlete file. So over here I go to raw data, athlete CSV. Okay, so I'll just create athlete is equal to, now, so before reading the file, generally when you write the Spark code, you have to create something called as a Spark session. Then create the app to the Spark application and then write your code. But on the Databricks, you get all of these things already assigned to it, so you don't have to create the Spark session from the scratch. So as you can see it over here, you can easily check the app name and everything is available to you. So you don't have to do that. But generally, when you start the Spark code in any other platform, you will have to create something called a Spark session. So let me just Google it and show you. Over here you have to import the Spark session. This is a Scala code. Let me get the Python. Yeah, so from PySQL, so from PySpark.sql Spark session, you have to build this Spark session plot builder, give the app name, get or create, then you will have the Spark function. So we already have this built in on the Databricks, so you don't have to do that by yourself. So just wanted to point this, just wanted to let you know, because a lot of people might get confused that why didn't you create the Spark object, because we already have it. Okay, so you can use this Spark dot read dot format. You can provide the format as CSV. We are reading the CSV file. Dot load, we have the load function over here. We will provide this mount location, mount slash inside the raw data. This is my raw data. I have athlete.csv. Okay, I can just run this and I can just do show. If I do show, you will see we were able to read the data frame, but there's a problem. The column name, the actual header is being considered as a data. So to do that, we have to use something called as a option. Option is the basic of Apache Spark. Okay, header as true. Okay, once you do that, now you run this. Now you do the show and you see we were able to get the proper data frame. So now what you have to do, you have to read all of the data frame available inside our data lake. So let me just copy this, put this 5 times. Okay, and we can go one by one. Let's say go coaches. You can put the coaches over here, you can put the coaches over here. Then we have entries gender, can put it over here, remove the CSV, Okay, and then we have medals. Okay, after that we have teams and teams here also. Okay, so we will read all of the CSV file that is available. So there is a concept available in Apache Spark called as a lazy evaluation. So if you have watched my Apache Spark 10 minutes video, you will understand that when you run any transformation block, so this is considered as the loading or any transformation block, Apache Spark does not actually execute this code. What it does, it has something called as a lazy evaluation. So transformation block is only executed once you perform some action. So when you run something called as action, then it runs the entire code from the start to end to give you the final output. And when we do the actual transformation, you will understand that. So I just wanted to point out this basic concept as we go forward, right? So for the transformation, we will do some renaming of the column and we will change some data types, because we don't really have any garbage data available inside our data set, because the data set was pretty clean. So we will do basic transformation and we will also do the basic analytics using Apache Spark code, so that you will get understanding about the different functions available in Apache Spark. So we will start by getting understanding about the data set of the athlete. Okay, so we will do such as called as a print schema. There is a function, you can just write the print schema and it will print the entire schema of the data frame. So as you can see, we have the person name which is in the string format. That makes sense, person name should be in the string. We have the country, again that is in the string. We have the discipline, it is in the string. So this data frame looks good. We can go about the coaches. So let me just get the coaches dot show. I'll just do the show and it will print all of the information about the coaches, and I can do the print schema for the coaches also. And again, all of these values are in string and we have the schema as string, so nothing wrong in this data frame. Then we have the gender. Okay, so let's look at this. So we have not head, show. I'll do the show, and over here I'll do print schema again. As you can see it over here, this part is a string, but the number of females, number of males, and the total amount of these two should be integer. But in our schema, it is considered as a string. So what we need to do, we need to change the data type from the string to the integer. And this is what the basic transformation means, right? You try to get the data into the proper format so that you can pass it forward. So when you're working with the multiple data sources, you will get a lot of data that is not into the proper data type. At that time, you will have to manually apply the proper data type so that you can pass the quality data forward for the analysis to build the machine learning models. Okay, so what we will do, we will do something like this is equal to, there's a function available inside Apache Spark which is called as the with column. Okay, uh, that uses, you can use with column, you can use with column function that has, that takes the argument such as string and the column that you want to apply some functions on top of it. So we will use the female, this is the, let's say the female part, and we want to create the new column female, which is basically we are overwriting on top of this female column we will have female. Okay, dot cast to something called as a integer type. You can have int, you can have integer, okay, something like this, or you can also use integer type function, and we will have to import this on the top. So let me import these two things. Let me just get this. So we have to import two things. One is a column function from the Spark package and the integer type. And let me just go on the top. You can add, click onto this plus icon, and you can add these two things from PySpark.sql.function import column, and from PySpark.sql types import the integer, double, boolean, and all of the other types. So now we can use the column function and the integer type in our code like this. Okay, let me get this. Okay, now so this is for the female, but we also want to do this for the male and the total also. So you can, if you want to write more, you can just also do the with column and provide the male and the total also, but we can write it on the new line also. And in Python, if you want to write something in the new line, you have to hit the backslash and then write dot with column. Over here I'll write male column male dot cast integer type, and then you can do the same dot with column. I'll do total column total dot cast integer type. Okay, I'll just run this. Hopefully we do not get any error. We are getting the error as unexpected type. Okay, you have to add the parenthesis. If I run this, it ran successfully. Now if I print schema, you will see this is string, this is integer, integer, and integer. So if you try to get the sum of this, you will get an error because it is in the string format, but now it is in the integer format. So we were able to successfully convert our schema of the male, female, and the total to the integer type. Then what do we have? We have the medals. So let's go and do the same for the medals. We do show first. We check the show and make sure we have a lot of integer values available. So medals dot print schema. I'll get the schema. So in this case also you can see we have a lot of string values, but it should be integer. Now again, we can convert these manually by writing the code. I just showed you one of the example, but there is a one more way, and the way is you can do this while reading the file. So there is an option available inside the Apache Spark called as the this one dot option infer schema as true. Okay, now if you do this, and let's just apply this to the medals as well, and this part, this part, and this part. And if you run this, Apache Spark will go through the CSV automatically and will try to understand the schema of each and every column. So now if we run this medals.print schema, you will see instead of string, we have all of the integer values automatically assigned to the different columns that we have available. I just showed you both way because I just want to show you the different way you can transform this data, and write the basic Apache Spark code. So you have the medals done, and then you can also do the same for, let's say, teams. You can do the show. Inside the teams we have everything as a string only. So let's just do the print schema, and if I do this, you will see everything is in the string. So this is about the reading part of it. Now we can also do some basic transformation on top of it. So in real world you might have to filter some of the data, group by it, and try to create the new type of data frame so that businesses can get the data on specific granularity. But in this case we are just doing for the tutorial purposes. We can also apply some other transformation functions, such as, let's say, if I want to get the find something like this. Okay, find the top countries with the highest number of gold medals. So you can do this something like this. So top gold medal by countries, something like this, and we have this medal available. Okay, inside the medal we have a country and the gold column available. So you can just do medals dot order by gold, and you can just say ascending is equal to false. Okay, if I run this, and you can also do show. If I do the show, you will see United States had like 39 goals, Japan 27, Great Britain 22. You can sort this data based on something, but we just want the two columns, so you can use something called the select, and then provide the team country, comma, gold. We just want these two columns, and if I run this now, you will see we just get the two columns only. So if you have the requirement, if you want to process some of the data, you can do some basic transformation like this. Or let's say if you want to get something like this, which is calculate the average number of entries by gender for each discipline. So you can use this code. I already have written the code so that we can save the time, but what this code does is that you have the data frame name, entries, gender. We are using the with column. Inside the with column we are providing the new column name, average female. Then we divide the females by the total, and same with the male, we divide the male by the total. And if you do this, you will see the output as the average female and the average male in each and every different discipline. So you should, you can do same analysis using code and also using SQL. Just like this, there are many different functions available in Apache Spark. So you can just go on to this Apache Spark uh, transformation function, go to the Apache Spark documentation. Okay, so you can go over here, so you can go to the Apache Spark documentation and you will find literally each and every functions available for your transformation work. Okay, as you can see it over here, you can have the map, filter map, union. So I have the plans to launch the detailed Apache Spark course in the future. So if you want, you can always register for that. So I already have the Python, SQL, and the data warehouse course available. But if you want, you can check the link in the description. At the time that you are watching this video, it might be available. So always keep eye on the new courses that I published. You will get the detailed guide about each and everything. So this is what you can do using the Databricks Apache Spark. The reason I added this section because I just wanted to show you the connection, how to read data. All of these things are important while you're creating the pipeline. Okay, the goal of this writing code was not to transform anything. It's just to show you how to read data, do some basic transformation along the way, and then load the data onto the target location, and that we will be doing right now. Okay, so we were able to read the data, we did some basic transformation. Now I want to write this data. So you can get the data frame name, let's say athlete, then you can have something as write dot mode. Now we might be writing this data again and again, so you can have something called as the override. So let me just remove this part for now. Okay, let's just go and have the option as header true. I want the header as true dot csv. In this case, where do we want to loadable file? So you can just go on the top and in our mount location over here, okay, this part where I want to write my file. So I can just paste it over here, mount transform data, and the file name is athletes. Okay, so I'll just write the athletes. It will automatically consider as a CSV. So if I run this, hopefully it writes file onto our storage. So this is where my transform data is, and this created the folder, and this is the file where everything got stored. Now this is how the Apache Spark basically stores the data. It has a lot of different metadata and then it stores the file. So if you want the single file, you can convert this into the pandas data frame and then write it, but we will keep this as it is for the understanding purposes. So generally when you write the file using Apache Spark, it will create the folder and then write the files with the metadata with it. Okay, but you can do the single file also using the pandas data frame while converting it. So now if I try to run this again, you will get an error because it already exists. And to overcome this error, you can have something as this mode, which is, let's say, dot mode override. Now if I do the override, it will override on top of the existing file, so it will directly write on top of this only. So if your data is large enough, Apache Spark will divide the writing of that file into the multiple different small parts. So if I go over here, as you can see, we have the duplicates because we ran the code 2 times. But this part, which is where our actual CSV file is stored, you can just download this, and I can also open this. You will see it is the same file, the athlete file, which is on the raw storage. But this we wrote from the Apache Spark code. So this part, we will have like multiple parts, such as part 0001, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 4, 5, 6, 7. If you have like very large file, so if you want to write the single file only, you can use something called as the repartition. Okay, and you can provide the partition count. So let's say in this case I provide partition as 3. If I run this and if I go over here, you will see I was able to partition data into 3 different files. So you can provide the keys and all of the different things, partition key and everything while writing the file. You can explore more about it, but just want to show you this concept that you can partition your data into multiple different files while writing the Spark code. So in this case, I just want the single partition. I just want the single file. So I can also go over here, but we will have the previous version. So what you can do, you can just delete this first. Okay, let me just delete this, and then you can run this code again. Once you run this, you will refresh this and you will see the athletes, and I have the one single partition available over here. So this is about writing the athletes. You can do the same for all of the different data frames available. So let me just get this. Already have written this. So instead of this, I will just change my mount location. So you can do this transform for this part, this part, and this part. So I run this, and if I go back onto my, wait, yeah, over here. So as you can see, we have the 5 folders available that we loaded using the Apache Spark code. So let's try to understand this part using the architecture diagram. So we had our data stored onto the data repository. We use Data Factory to extract this data and then load this data onto the target location, which is our data lake. Then after that, we created the Data Factory workspace, created the compute, and started writing code. We read the data, we did few transformation, we understood about the Apache Spark code and how to do print schema, do group by filtering and everything. And then we loaded the same data onto the transform data folder. Now what we want to do, we need to load this data onto the Synapse Analytics. Okay, this is where you can use SQL to do the analysis, or generally the data analysis, or data analyst or data scientist person can use all of this data to get the insights on the data or build a dashboard on top of it. So this is what it looks. Now again, you can create the Synapse Analytics folder using this. You will have to create the connections and all of the different things. So we have done a lot of things using the Data Factory, which is kind of like the workflow management tool. We have done using the code. Now we will do it using the UI. So you will get understanding about all of the 3 different ways. Okay. So this is the end of part 1 of this project. I hope you had fun executing this. If you reached till here, then let me know in the comments. And also don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe button. Now, if you want to watch the part 2, you can just click on this card and start watching it. The part 2 is uploaded on the Project Pro channel, so you can go there and finish this project. All the best.